Welcome. Your ship will arrive momentarily. In the meantime, we ask that you secure any delicate cargo, such as children or immature individuals, in the loading bay. Loose items like fragile egos, endless mental chatter, political fantasy, and religious dogma are prohibited. As we prepare for departure, please be advised that the challenges this mission holds offer particularly significant risks to the mind, heart, and will of the explorer, and the odds of survival as you know them are extremely low. Your bravery in the face of this great adversity inspires us all.
Trying to save you and your family's life. I'm giving you a choice. Either put on these glasses or start eating that trash can.
We are not in Kansas anymore, Toto. Are you ready to free your mind from those silly-ass chains? Well, buckle up, friends, because you are watching the baddest show in the Milky Way. Take aim or take cover while we annihilate ignorance, deception, and slavery in all its forms. Welcome to the Holy Warship Podcast.
You're not getting away from the long arm of natural law.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 4 of the Holy Warship Podcast. I am your host, Aaron Butler. Extremely grateful to be here with you guys today. Today, we're going to be getting into the season of false flags, or false flag season. And we're going to get into just various different types of false flags. And I'm going to break down a lot of information that many people, haven't really connected the dots to. So, yes, without further ado, welcome to the Holy Warship Podcast once again. Today, I am not streaming on the One Great Work Network, but you can find a lot of great work on the One Great Work Network, where everyone on there, all these content creators, they really understand the true principles and the true principles of freedom and what it takes to achieve freedom externally in the world. So go ahead and head over to the One Great Work Network, and you will find some awesome content. Everyone over there, there's Sean McCann right there on the live stream, but some amazing heavy hitters right there, all in one place. A lot of these guys, you already know their faces. So many amazing people on there. And so you won't regret going on there if you really want to dive into the hidden workings of reality. So just to get into some quick caveats is that I think everyone should go and watch my presentation, Everything You Should Already Know. I say it every time, but if you really want to get to
that the mind
get a
was
really good
a receiver.
gestalt, get a really good overview of, where humanity has been, where we're going, this is a good presentation because I framed billions of years of evolution and conscious evolution all into one presentation. And it was supposed to be 30 minutes. And I couldn't do it quick enough, and I couldn't squeeze it all in there. So what was supposed to be a 30-minute presentation turned into a 2-hour presentation. And, go check it out if you want to really go a little bit deeper and whet your appetite for where this podcast is coming from, the Holy Warship, because this is basically like, the hors d'oeuvre or whatever comes first before like a lot of the big stuff. And go over to the One Great Work Network, check out all of that, because this is just a little bit of a taste to get people and get the juices flowing, right? So go check that out. And also, I would like everyone to please consider donating to me, because donations are really helpful, and I could really use some help for anyone out there listening who is able to, please consider donating. And if you're not in a position to donate, I would really appreciate you just sharing my work. Share this presentation. Give it a view. Kick back on the weekend, nice Sunday afternoon. Whatever floats your boat to relax and absorb some information that is of decent quality, if I say so myself. If you can tolerate this guy right here and the faces that he makes and all the weird, his voice and all that, I think you can get a lot out of it if you just relax, have a glass of wine, roll up a doobie, whatever gets you in the mood to just listening with an open mind. I think that's really the best way to view it. And share this video. Share it. Watch it. Watch the other podcasts on my channel, because I go hard, guys. The Warship goes hard. And if anyone out there, I don't understand how people listen to other stuff like that is just flying through the air. Most people just they watch whatever everyone else is watching. And look, 147 views. Try to find anyone who's mashed up billions of years of the story of humanity into just 2 hours. I mean, there's not many people who do that kind of stuff. And I give timeless wisdom. The wisdom that I drop in here will live on way, way, way. It'll just be always true, so go check it out. Share it with everyone, please, with anyone who you think has an open mind, or even if they don't have an open mind, just spam it to them. Spam it to like random cell phone numbers, maybe. I don't know. Not if that's illegal in your area. I'm not saying don't do illegal things, but just send it out. Share it with the world. It would really help me out. And if you don't feel like doing that, and you really are kind of like a shy guy and you don't want to share your information with other people, please consider donating, because that is an amazing way that people can help me. And it really, it helps me spend less time doing other shit, trying to make money, and spend more time creating content. Because this podcast today, what we're going to be getting into with today's episode is just going to be hard-hitting, bananas, good stuff. Okay, now that we got that out of the way, this show is for mature audiences. This is for people who can relax. They don't have a bunch of mental chatter. If you listen to the introduction, and it wasn't too jumbled, I think I had 2 sources going this time. However, listen to the introduction. This is for mature audiences only. And I want people observing and hanging out with me, people in the chat, just relax and let's be mature. And this is for people who don't, get all sensitive on things, because we're going to be talking about some crazy stuff, as you can tell, the background, right? This is for mature audiences, people who are emotionally mature, mentally mature, There is another caveat that I like to include, is that this is for stable audiences only. As stable as anyone can be these days. This is deeply upsetting when the stuff we're going to talk about today, guys, when it comes to the false flag season, or the season of sacrifice is what some people call it. This is information that shakes and rattles people to their core. And I remember when I was young, and I first watched a couple like documentaries that were really hardcore explaining this type of information. The first years, this was right, I just started high school, and it was just a little bit after I started high school, and I watched Zeitgeist, which is a great documentary, and I recommend it to anyone. I'm not saying that all of these things you just need to believe. I've verified a lot of things since then. Don't just believe it. But when I first, and it was like a lifelong event where people would just show me things like, the swastika at the Denver airport, and how the barbed wire's backwards, and all these dark, trippy, apocalyptic murals. I was barely in high school looking at that, and I remember that I would always stay up late, like binging it, listening and observing and trying to like wrap my head around this, and the very next day it was out of my head. The very next day. I got very lucky that I was just, that I just had multiple people in my life that were, they might not have come full circle or came to, really drank deeply from this knowledge. But I was very lucky enough to have those people in my life. So shout out to all the people in my life who have helped wake me up. Yeah, thank you for that. And if you have a hard time accepting reality and looking into things, this podcast might serve to put a couple pieces together that you might not have, put together yourself. And so that's what this is here to do. Other caveat, we're going to get through this. This is going to be one of the longer shows today because I have a lot of information to share, and it's just going to be continuously diving deeper into this season, which we are coming into. This is the season of false flags, right? I'm not perfect. Please don't expect perfection out of me. I will never be perfect, and don't expect perfection out of really anything on this planet. I don't think it's really reasonable. I think you should just, chill out. And I'm not perfect. Don't go attacking me because you don't like this information. And then I do believe that we're late. We're all late. We need to catch up. That's why this is the Warship, folks. That's why we're sitting here at the Warship, is because humanity is late. And what do you think could happen to even shake us out of this calcified, repetitive, just wild place that we're living in? We're late. So that's why I'm a little extreme, and I am a little aggressive, and I try to keep it pretty chilled out on this show because a lot of people who know me, you all know that I've had my ups and downs, and I've been very passionate about this. And so many people don't understand it, but I believe, one of my beliefs, don't believe me, but one of my beliefs is that most people really need a little, like I needed, just a swift kick in the rear end, because I believe that in order to turn this boat around and give our children a future, and I do this like solely like day to day because I want my children to live in a peaceful world, in as much as that is possible. I'm not utopian, but I do think I see no one else doing a lot of this work. So imagine the pressure that puts on people. If you're not doing anything and you just you believe everyone and you're a believer, then nothing will ever get done and nothing will ever change. So don't believe me. Go verify everything for yourself. And you make your own choices. Once again, you make your own choices. We all make our own choices. Any information that you take from this show, it is not an excuse for you to say, oh, Aaron was thinking this or said this. Well, guess what? You make your own choices. And I'm just here to share information that I've learned, and I'm doing my best to apply it to the best of my abilities in my own life. Leads into the next one. I do stand against violence. So don't twist my words. Don't take anything I'm saying here as a call to violence or a call to arms. The revolution will not be televised, as the saying goes. The revolution will be reflected in each of our own internal conditions, and the revolution will be reflected. So it will not be televised. You're not going to watch the revolution on a screen. I'm not calling for anything violent and external. We all have to take actions, which is self-defense. For the most part, as long as you know self-defense and know morality and know truth, then, then you will know when to protect yourself and when to just listen and learn. Okay, so part 1 of this episode, False Flag Season, and this is a prerequisite part, and we're going to get into what the season is. What is the False Flag Season? So we have to break down the word sacrifice. And, this is ultimately what the False Flag Season is a season of sacrifice. And it's beginning here shortly. And I wanted to get this definition out of the way because it shines so much light to what is going on and what is happening. So let's look into it. The word sacrifice comes from Latin sacrificium, which is a combination of sacer or sacre, not sure, meaning sacred or holy. And facer, I'm not a Latin, guy, folks, so I'm just doing the best I can. So, which is a combination of sacer, meaning sacred or holy, and facer, meaning to make or to do. So, sacrifice is to make sacred or to render holy. That's a good definition that we have to remember, because it gets into the esoteric and deeper implications of what sacrifice is. So true sacrifice is not merely an act of loss or suffering, but an act of transformation, an elevation of something from the mundane to the sacred. So in the initiatory traditions of Hermeticism, Kabbalah, and Freemasonry, sacrifice is understood as an alchemical process where the lower self is transmuted into the higher self. So in the true essence of what a sacrifice is, it is the subjugating of what is lower and the elevation of what is higher. So we have to remember that. And now we're going to keep getting deeper and deeper. So sacrifice is the sacred art of surrendering the lesser to attain the greater, the key to transcending the self and the burning fire through which the soul is made divine. So I always like to take things and take definitions or take words and take thoughts and bring them back in time. Like how much can you drag back to prehistory, right? So sacrifice can be something as simple as storing grain for later, harvesting fruits and vegetables, and you're going to sacrifice the satisfaction of yourself right now and the pleasure or nurturement of yourself right now, and you're putting it aside for later, something greater, the future which is great, So that's what a sacrifice is. It's a way to, that's what true sacrifice is sacrificing time and energy, like everyone who could be watching this is doing right now, and like I'm doing right now to put this information together. So we have to always think about things, how much of it can be dragged back. So much of what we talk about here on this show is not new. So now that we have the understanding of sacrifice, what is the false flag season and what is the season of sacrifice? So early spring marks the breaking of winter's hold when the earth transitions from death, winter, to life in the spring. In ancient cultures, blood was spilled to ensure this transition was successful, whether through warfare, ritual, human, or animal sacrifice, or controlled fires. The sacrifice of one thing to bring forth another is a core hermetic, alchemical, and occult principle of life. Life cannot emerge without death. So we all know this in our personal lives. If you want to start doing something better or bigger or add something to your life, other things are going to have to move to the wayside. So we're all going to have to sacrifice parts of ourselves for the greater cycles and the greatness of life. Now, early in history, people had many different viewpoints of what sacrifice was. And there were things like, ritual sacrifice, which we will get into. And so the season of sacrifice, running from March 22nd, it's coming up. So it's coming up to May 1st. So this is the 40 days, or it starts the 3 days after the spring equinox, which is March 19th and 20th. And it's a period of ritualistic energy where ancient traditions and ancient cults and ancient religions, they all associated this passing of the winter season into spring as like from death to rebirth. So the death makes way for new life. So they see it as like a replenishing and a renewal, a transmutation of energy. So in esoteric philosophy, this period represents a gateway between destruction and renewal, where the forces of war, transformation, and deception are invoked. Historically, many wars, revolutions, and human sacrifices were ignited during this period. The burning of the old world and ushering in of the new plays into the elite's alchemy of control, using fear, death, and destruction to reshape society. So we already know this takes place subconsciously, and so this is what this season represents, and we're going to get into that in this next slide, which is pretty powerful. And I hijacked this slide. Thank you, Mark Passio, for such a great explanation of the season of sacrifice. So on the third day after the spring equinox, the sun breaks past the equator and fully emerges from its tomb of the southern hemisphere. This represents the sun rising from the dead. So it's like the unconquerable sun motif, right? It's death and rebirth, which is what the sun symbolizes. It's the ultimate symbol. It's a symbol of creation. So this represents. So to begin this journey towards its higher power at the summer solstice in sun worshipping traditions, animal and sometimes human sacrifices were offered during the 40 days between the spring equinox and May Day, mid-spring. This is the planting season, and the sacrifices were made to the sun and the earth to ensure a bountiful harvest. The 40 days between March 22nd and May 1st, May Day, are the occult season of sacrifice. 40 days is a significant symbolic time period in biblical and occult terms. Be particularly vigilant for false flag events and potential human sacrifice rituals during this time, which we are going to be getting into. So, everyone knows that ancient traditions, they all had ways, ritualistic, magical traditions that would essentially, they're sought to encourage and align themselves with a good harvest and align themselves with nature. So we're going to get into the Aztec festival of Toxcatl. The Aztecs celebrated the Toxcatl festival in honor of Tezcatlipoca, where a chosen man lived as a god for a year, indulging in luxury before being sacrificed. In a grand ritual, he was led to the temple pyramid, where priests cut out his heart while he was still alive, feeding the sun and sustaining the cosmic cycle. So we all know, everyone talks about history and how, savage they were. If you know anything about my work, is that much of the bloodshed in history actually comes from these kingship traditions and these patriarchal traditions. So that's where a lot of this. So it's not when we get into some of these historical cults and people, they're not all evil and they're not all good. There are some that have great traditions and great practices, but then there are always outliers who seek power. So this sacrifice, ensuring the continuation of cosmic order through the offering of blood, life energy, and death rituals, occurred in the season of sacrifice, April through May, marking the end of the agricultural cycle, the end of winter, which is the end, right? So the winter is over, and the renewal of the land, which is when spring comes, right? Everything springs forth. So these themes are just going to keep continuing even to our modern day, which we're going to get to. So Roman Robgalia festival. The Roman Rapgalia festival, held on April 25th, was dedicated to Robigus, the god of agricultural disease, to protect crops from blight and ensure fertility before the May planting season. The Romans sacrificed red animals like dogs, sheep, and bulls by fire, believing their blood held protective power. So we still see these traditions today, like the red heifers, right? They would talk about the red heifers in Israel and all of that hocus pocus weird stuff. So this is the Roman that, everyone knows, they sacrifice things, right? Well, it just keeps getting bigger. That's all that happened, and it just gets a little more covert. They have a better way of disguising it, which we'll get to. So this fire and blood sacrifice aligns with Beltane's May 1st fire rituals as an offering to the gods to prevent famine and pestilence. It follows the tradition of spring blood sacrifices meant to sustain the life cycle. So we all know that this is something that was practiced, and a lot of these people, they're still around. These people practicing this is still around. So I chose to do this episode because we're dawning, time is ticking, we're late, and I'm just gonna keep going. Anyone out there in the chat, anyone hanging out, go ahead and jump on the chat. Don't be shy. Leave a comment, and let's hang out, right? So the Viking Blood Eagle Ritual. The Viking Blood Eagle Ritual was a brutal execution method reserved for enemies or captured kings, where the victim's ribs were severed from the spine and their lungs pulled out to resemble wings of flesh. This gruesome sacrifice was an offering to Odin, believed to secure victory in battle and ensure the fertility of the land. So, yes, and it took place in spring before they could actually start marching out of the snow into warmer weather. So the blood eagle was both a punishment and a ritual sacrifice symbolizing the warrior's death and rebirth. Performed before spring campaigns, March through April, mirroring modern war patterns, which we will get to. And we all just, this is not an old thing, and we're going to get to it. But here's a great one that we all talk about, and we all know about Moloch. All the conspiracy people know about, Moloch and Baal. Well, they had patterns of when they would do this, and how they would do this. So in the Carthaginian springtime rituals, children were burned alive as offerings to Moloch, with elite families willingly sacrificing their firstborns to gain wealth, power, and divine favor. Archaeological evidence reveals thousands of child remains buried in Tophet sacrificial sites. So it's pretty obvious when we remember, oh yeah, this is what these old cults do. Well, this happened at a very specific time of year. So Moloch's sacrifices were always associated with fire and mass offerings, mirroring April's fire-based rituals. So think of Waco, Oklahoma City bombing, Columbine, Virginia Tech. A lot of these things, and all of these took place during the season of sacrifice. Every one of these, but think of mass offerings, fire, right? Right, and children. You think Virginia Tech, Waco, Columbine, all of these things. The 9/11 shock and awe, which we're going to get to. I mean, these are sacrifices, and there's a pattern here. So Beltane, May 1st, is one of the most ancient fire festivals featuring bonfires, fertility rites, and sacrificial offerings performed by druids and pagans to ensure prosperity The infamous Wicker Man ritual involved burning people alive in giant wooden effigies. So they would stuff people in there. They're the sacrifices, right? And they're cleansing. So, I mean, no, they have different traditions, Ultimately, it's like the young and, everyone has different traditions, but they all made these sacrifices at some point. And it doesn't mean that druids or pagans and pagans are all bad and terrible, as we saw the Romans and all of those people who found the modern fake Christianity. They were all pagans. They were all doing this. So, we all know of all of these rituals. Well, we don't know of all of them, but we know of these next ones, the modern rituals. So, these modern rituals, which typically fall inside of the season of sacrifice, and it's not like they only fall in the season of sacrifice, but many, many big ones are this period of season of sacrifice. It's a astrological, energetic, sympathetic system of making sacrifice, and that is still practiced today. So, Jesus' crucifixion, I had to include that as a classical example, right? So, a sacrifice, right? For God so loved the world that he sacrificed his only begotten son. Blah, 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 right? Jesus is the OG sacrifice, right? That everyone knows about. But, a lot of people don't know that many of these ritualistic sacrifices, which have much to do with blood and children and earth and they're dark rituals, right? So many people would call a lot of these false flags. So a false flag is a deceptive act where the real perpetrators hide their role and blame someone else, often to justify war, political action, or social control. By creating fear or outrage, they manipulate public opinion to gain support for their agenda, such as new policies, military action, or silencing opposition. And we get into the Waco massacre. So the FBI and ATF laid siege to the Branch Davidian compound in Waco, Texas, over allegations of illegal firearm possession. After military-style force was used against the religious group, 76 men, women, and children were burned alive. So this happening April 19th, right, which is another crucial day. They love April 19th, which I think April 19th is Walpurgisnacht. You could go back. I could be wrong on that. Okay, so this is what we see in the modern world. Fire, children, sacrifice. And it's just going to keep getting worse, like I'm telling you. This is a repeated pattern that is used. So, in the aftermath of Waco, federal law enforcement powers expanded, leading to the increased militarization of the police, FBI, ATF, and other agencies. The siege was used to justify heavier surveillance of so-called extremist groups, right? Because everyone sees this happening and they think, oh yeah, you better not resist the government, you better not question anything, because look what happened to these people who they had a different interpretation of the Bible. And they believed something different than the other government. So I said this before. You only have freedom of religion as long as your religion does not question Big Brother. So they particularly started targeting religious and right-wing organizations. Waco also paved the way for the 1994 federal assault weapons ban, portraying armed civilians as a dangerous threat to federal control. And all the glowies, all the people that work for these agencies, they have been brainwashed, and they don't know it, but they've been brainwashed to actually think that they're doing a good service for humanity and they're part of a big plan. But we all know the truth behind that, right? The Oklahoma City bombing. A truck bomb exploded at the Alfred P. Murrah Federal Building, killing 168 people, including children. April 19th. They like April 19th and April 20th, that's for sure. Timothy McVeigh was blamed, supposedly acting as a right-wing domestic terrorist seeking revenge for Waco. So, it all plays into itself, right? And then, so this transformation, why is it a ritual? What are they doing? Well, they're making way for their control. They're making way for the new world that they want to live in. The 1996 Anti-Terrorism and Effective Death Penalty Act expanded federal power to prosecute domestic terrorism while reducing habeas corpus rights and limiting appeals. In response to concerns over militias and patriot groups, the FBI and ATF increased infiltration and surveillance, paving the way for the Patriot Act. Stricter federal control over explosives and weapons followed, tightening ammonium nitrate regulations and justifying more restrictions on the lone wolf extremist. So, all of these serve many, many facets. They serve many facets of the system and the control grid. It's not just about one thing. When interests converge, right? When interests converge, then you have events taking place that have been manipulated from multiple sides, even though they might not always talk to each other. So let's get into another one involving children, another ritual sacrifice which took place April 20th, 420, they love that one. Students Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold carried out a mass shooting at Columbine High School, killing 13 people, before allegedly committing suicide. The heavily televised event shaped the modern school shooting narrative and fueled national debates on gun control and youth violence. So it's all about fear. It's all about feeding the earth its blood, right? They have these weird beliefs. And I heard many things about these children, but something that I heard, it's a rumor, I'd never even looked into it, is that these guys were, I guess, fighting back in a way. I'm not sticking up for anything at all. That's not sticking up for anything. But what I'm saying is that these guys obviously have issues, and it probably has something to do with trauma or abuse, neglect. And what else do we know about, Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold? What else do we know about them? Well, Columbine fueled the gun control lobby's push for stricter laws. Well, I'll get into what else we know about them in just a second. Justifying efforts to extend the 1994 assault weapons ban and advocating for expanded background checks, magazine limits, and assault weapon bans. It also triggered the first major push for school surveillance, leading to the introduction of metal detectors, security cameras, and armed police in schools. Zero-tolerance policies tightened control over student speech, bullying, and internet activity, justified as a preventative measure against future violence. So this is where we see the paranoid school system, and everything is sensitive, and they're so terrified of school shooters and all of this stuff. And I'll tell a funny story. I won't even tell this story. We'll skip it this time. I'll save it for later. Anyway, this is when they started the fear campaigns on schools. Oh, our kids aren't even scared or aren't even safe on campuses, right? And so, you can't wear these shirts at school that, freak people out. There's just removing expression from children. And so let's get into another detail. Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold were on or had recently been prescribed psychotropic medications, with Harris taking Luvox, fluvoxamine, and SSRI linked to aggression and suicidal tendencies. So they drugged the children, and they already have a lot of trauma. And Klebold had a history of depression, but his medication records were sealed, raising suspicions of a cover-up. So they sealed his medical records, which is like, you know, they're covering up events in his life and maybe traumas that he's had. Instead of scrutinizing psychiatric drugs' role in violent behavior, the media blamed guns, bullying, and video games, while the pharmaceutical industry used the tragedy to push more medication onto children rather than less. So we have them paving the way. And after this event, they said, you don't want your kid to be a school shooter, you should get him on depression medication. You don't want your kid to, you know, shoot up the school, so you got to give him ADHD and SSRI medication, which are linked to homicidal, suicidal, anti-human thoughts, right? So this is where, you know, April 20th, the season of sacrifice, they have an agenda, they have something they need to get done, so they foment an event, and it, you know, they're paving the way for the world that they want, paving the way for control. Okay. The shock and awe bombing of Iraq after the 9/11 attacks. So 9/11 did not occur on this date, but the bombings of 7,000 civilians, they killed 7,000 civilians in the first days. So this was the beginning of the Iraq War, the weapons of mass destruction, right? And setting the stage for just a never-ending war. Think about that. You want to talk about a blood ritual, blood and fire ritual. Well, there you go. There it is. And this is a ritual sacrifice. So after 9/11 and leading into the shock and awe bombings, the U.S. government enacted sweeping laws like the Patriot Act, NDAA, Homeland Security Act, which basically labeled anyone in the United States as a potential terrorist. And they will claim that that's not what this does. They will pretend like, you know, they'll pretend like, oh, it's all natural and they're not doing anything. This is just for, you know, terrorists. Well, as we saw in Waco and Oklahoma City, everyone's a terrorist, remember? We even already all know that Alex Jones and he was on the terrorist watch list. And, you know, you do anything wrong, you're on the terrorist watch list. Well, 9/11, everyone knows they had an agenda, and it's all part of the New World Order, right? And we could get into the symbolism of 9/11 and, you know, all of that. But you can look that up yourself, and you could find this out, because you will understand after looking into this and finding out about the season of sacrifice that this is legit. This isn't just bullshit. It's a pattern. And mark my words, we're pushing into this season with so much hostility and so much desire for destruction and a changing of ways. We'll get into it. So Chernobyl. So thousands died of radiation and illness after April 26th, a reactor explosion, a nuclear power plant. So it released massive radioactive material. It just blew up, right? Killed 31 people instantly, with thousands more dying. And so the sacrifice with fire and blood, what it always seems to do is pave the way for fear, survival thought, survival brainwaves, and just trying to exist and survive. So the pattern is here, and I've laid it out. We already know that this exists. So let's keep going. COVID-19, right? A ritual sacrifice orchestrated to weaken control, and transform society. A bioweapon was released to justify emergency powers, plunging the world into fear and submission. Hospitals became temples of a ritual death where victims were sacrificed through malpractice, mirroring ancient blood offerings, right? How many people were murdered in these places? I left during the very beginning of COVID. The funny thing about COVID is I was tuned in, learning, researching about world events before COVID came here. And guess what? I told the people, I was working in the medical field, and I told the people around me, hey, there's people dropping dead in China right now from some unknown virus, some type of pneumonia, they're saying, and it's looking like it's going to come here. And this was a month before any lockdown or anything was even talked about in the U.S. Certain people were talking about it externally, but this was before. I said, hey, we should get some resources because they're going to be sold out soon. And they said, oh, you're just the conspiracy guy, right? You're just the guy that is too far gone into that world. Well, a month later, we were SOL and up shit creek without a paddle because we had no supplies, and I left. I'm not going to deal with that. I'm not going to deal with people around me who don't know anything. And then I shouldn't have been there in the first place. But anyway, yeah, so where most people, they're the victims. Most people are just the victims of the medical field. And COVID-19 was declared a pandemic on March 11th. And so don't get it twisted. Don't think that these institutions and that these people won't do you in for a paycheck. And it's not even just for a paycheck. It's mostly because they don't want to be looking at you. Trust me. That's the vibe in the hospitals. They want to get you out of there faster than you even came in. I'm telling you that. So the vaccine rollout functioned as a global marking ritual, forcing people to comply under threat of job loss, travel restrictions, and social exclusion. Ethical laws were discarded, violating the Nuremberg Code, while the shot itself altered human biology and pushing humanist agendas. So we all know this. Everyone who's cares and is looking into these things, we know exactly, what's going on with this. We all know that it was the sacrifice for those people dying in all the hospitals, right? Most people probably died in a hospital. That's just a hunch. And so, yeah, shoving people on ventilators. It was just a big practice run. But we're going to get into the deep secret of COVID and something that many people don't even, they should be talking about, but they don't. It's one of the biggest things about COVID, besides all of the sophisticated mRNA, DNA destruction time bomb that these shots were. So lockdowns and forced isolation mirrored ancient initiation rites, breaking the human spirit through psychological torture, ensuring mass compliance for the emerging New World Order. So this mass sacrifice event paved the way for the Great Reset. And if you think that the Great Reset is dead, do you think that the Great Reset is dead? Do you think that it's just kind of rebranding? I don't think the Great Reset is dead. I don't think the Great Reset is dead at all. I think it has a chance to be killed, but human consciousness is still not paying attention. So this mass sacrifice event paved the way for the Great Reset, ushering in a surveillance state, digital ID tracking, and a fully controlled society. So we're going to get to it a little more, a little deeper. So the pandemic was not an accident. It was a transformation ritual where human suffering was weaponized to dismantle individual sovereignty and rebuild civilization under a totalitarian rule. Future crises will follow the same blueprint, furthering global control under the illusion of safety. So here's a big one, and people I haven't heard it talked about in how long. Everyone talks about COVID, right? But what was behind COVID? What was lurking underneath COVID? What was what was the real interesting facts about COVID? So a widely looked over coincidence regarding COVID is yet another attack on the natural energetic fields of humans and the planet. As fate would have it, in 2019, nations around the world would officially begin the wide-scale and commercial rollout of controversial mobile 5G and satellite-based internet systems. They rolled it out. They unleashed it. It wasn't just this little thing. And we'll get into this. So let's keep looking. So while everyone was distracted and hiding away in their house, the U.S. began installing 68,000 5G cell sites in 5,200 cities by April of 2020. So it was actually it was before this, if I'm not mistaken. As well as the beginning of hundreds of millimeter wave internet satellites from 2 satellites in 2018 and 2,000 by 2021. So it's never out before, right? All of a sudden, we have all of these 5G rollouts. And this is not conspiracy. These are facts. These are just things like, wow, huge pandemic during the breakout of highly sophisticated and disruptive technologies. So, North Korea had 1% of 5G coverage in 2018, and by 2020, they had nationwide coverage. So, United States had 1% coverage in 2018, to 62% of the population had coverage in December 2019. So, by December 2019, it was 62%. 2/3 of the U.S. had been bombarded with these disruptive systems, and now it's, 99% plus. Then the United Kingdom, 0% in 2018, no 5G coverage, and they're up to 92% now. So think of how much of the Earth is being radiated by this technology, and what they can do with this technology. Use your imagination to think about what these waves, which, pass through matter and into the biological systems of the world and of the Earth. So Germany had 1 city in 2018, and 85% of the population of Germany had 5G service in 2020. They didn't all sign up for it, but they were getting blasted. So China had 0 in 2018, 0% coverage. They might have experimented with some of it, to 90% 5G coverage in 2020. They were ready. They were so ready. So South Korea, 1% in 2018, nationwide by 2020. Australia, 0 in 2028, and, 50% by the end of 2020 probably. So is this a coincidence? Do we really think that this is a coincidence? This is what COVID was entangled with. So interestingly enough, all the telltale signs and symptoms of COVID, like hypoxia, blood clotting, vascular damage, Immune system suppression, brain fog, headaches, flu-like symptoms, loss of taste and smell, and fatigue are all identical symptoms of RF exposure and radiation sickness. So, what do you think this is? You think this is a conspiracy? No. It's just facts. So here's a list of diseases that took place during advanced technological rollouts. So in 1889 to 1890, the flu pandemic, they introduced AC electricity during that year. 1918, Spanish flu, introduction of radio waves. This is a big one. Everyone was getting sick. It's just a coincidence, right? It's just a coincidence that chronic fatigue, neurological illness just skyrocketed out of right as they started rolling out 2G networks, right? Then you have the SARS outbreak, 3G, swine flu, 4G. This isn't cherry picking. This is a trend. This is a pattern. So, what do you think? Do you think that COVID is the side effect of radiation, or do you think that it is the cover-up of radiation? So, COVID, cover-up or side effect? So, whether COVID-19 was a real virus or just gaslighting for radiation sickness, there is even more yet to be unpacked. COVID-19 was a push for overt lockdowns, mRNA vaccines, digital IDs, personal digital surveillance under the guise of COVID tracking, and AI-driven control systems. This was not just a psyop or a sacrifice. It was the cover-up for the implementation of the most pervasive, demonic surveillance system that anyone has yet to imagine fully. COVID, while everyone was asleep and recovering from COVID and listening to the media, they rolled it all out. They rolled out all the satellites. They rolled out all the towers in a big way. And so, whether it's a cover-up, whether COVID is a cover-up for this installation, or if it was a side effect, maybe it's both. They were making a way for a new world. They were getting everyone ready. So let's get into part 3. 'Tis the season. So what do we have? We have Doge. We have everything is going to hell in a handbasket. There are people that are very mad at Trump. It's the stage has been set, everyone. The stage has been set. So one of the largest reasons for these events continuously taking place and never ending is because humanity has a never-ending supply of those who will follow orders for the feeling of security. You know, whether it's the apocalypse, whether it's war, war in Ukraine, China, the migrant crisis, nuclear Armageddon, any of it. The largest contributor is people following orders. Think of all of the events that we've covered and how much just doing what you're told is not the best choice. So humanity is continuously trying to solve problems from a lower consciousness, which inevitably repeats poor behavior, leading to repeated poor results. This is why they're getting away with the season of sacrifice for so long. So this is why it's like, oh, well, this can't be real because everyone would know it. It would be more obvious. Well, guess what? it is real and it is obvious and it's right in front of everyone's face. So, get ready, because what they're about to start pulling out is going to be huge. It's going to be huge. Anyone who looks around and sees the allegiance to Trump and they are so radicalized and hopeful for the future that they're going to do whatever they're told when the shit hits the fan. And everyone's going to pay for it. Everyone's going to pay for it because people will do what they're told. And all of these threats that we see, whether it's, religious extremism, Trump radicals, Trump haters, it's all because people have been told what to do. I'm going to believe the TV. I'm going to believe the White House, And are you ready? Are you actually ready? So, all institutions in the modern world have been corrupted by the cult of authority, who will increasingly do as they are told as the chaos ensues. This is everybody. There's the trusted professionals and everyone underneath them. Your construction worker, your scientist, your priest, the news, And then everyone underneath them will do what they're told. Because they're the authorities, right? So this season, which is coming up rapidly, is a time where all of these people are sacrificed. All of these people are being sacrificed. You have all the priests getting called out right now. Nobody trusts religion. All the politicians are getting screwed right now. All the doctors are getting screwed right now. These guys kind of always get a free pass, which they're the main contributors to the systemic immorality in this world. And they enforce the law, right? They're enforcement, right? So and they just threw away all of the accountability for the police. So think about that. And if you really think you're a spiritual person, you think that you're a good person, yet you think that some people have more rights than others, that is an immoral belief, and it does not make you a good person. It makes you a bad person. So don't get it confused when you have the thin blue line sticker on your truck, and they'll still trash your ass, and they will still jack you up if they're having a bad day, their wife cheated on them, whatever it is. 40% of these guys beat women, beat children, but we don't, is that really who we want enforcing the law? Tyrants. And, anyone in this group can be a tyrant and do evil. But guess what? These people and everyone here, they need a wake-up call, and it can only happen if the majority of people who are supposedly under their rule step up and say no. So will you be willing to sacrifice your old order-following self in order to awaken the divine within you and learn true morality and join the great work of ending slavery? This is a question. When is humanity just going to say no? I don't need a fucking president. I don't need someone telling me what to do. I don't need someone writing up fake laws that have no importance in my life. I don't need someone pulling me over because they don't like the way my lights are on my car. And then if I disagree with them and start refusing their orders, then guess what? You catch a bullet, you catch an ass beating, you get put in a cell. You should have just done what he said. We live in an entire culture of people who just do what they're told. It's, try to keep it positive on this show. This is not really an episode. I was feeling good when I started. The more I get into it, I get fucking sad, guys. I get fucking sad. We have truly lost our shine. So, true sacrifice in the deepest occult traditions is not about external offerings, but about inner transmutation. Sacrifice is a sacred death of the ego, an offering of one's base nature to ascend toward divine realization. Becoming more aware, becoming awake. True sacrifice means submitting the lower instincts, fears, and desires and limitations to the sacred flame, which is the transmutational force. Let's get into Survival 101. If you want to survive, if you want to be a person who is not fearful in this world, true survival is the overcoming of death and dying with courage. You have to, true survival means I will be alive no matter what. Means when you understand survival and you understand death, it means that you're willing to defend yourself and defend righteousness and defend the truth and do what needs to be done because you know it's right and you're not afraid to be tortured or murdered. True survival is beyond the flesh. The secret to survival is the overcoming of death and dying with courage, honor, and righteousness, rather than being swept away by death's woes. You have to be able to say, if and when I come back to this planet, I'm going to continue fighting and keep moving forward, because the warrior spirit is the way of accepting the possibility of death, torture, and malevolence, and then to willingly sacrifice oneself for a cause that even time cannot destroy. This is true survival. If you want to be courageous, you must overcome death. You must die before you die. You must be willing to give your last breath and face torture, face malevolence, and not be afraid. Because this march and the next couple marches, we're just marching into a hellscape. And when you think about the COVID PSYOP cover-up, they implemented some of the most sophisticated technology that anyone could ever imagine. I want to play a little clip because that might be a pretty cool way to explain what's going on. And this is going to sound conspiratorial. Maybe I won't play a clip. We're just going to find a couple images and I'll pop them on there for you. So what I think is coming is swarm mode. This is the scene in The Matrix where Neo and Trinity are trying to escape and swarm mode is activated. And people are diving off of buildings and everything. Let's see, Docker swarm mode. Nah. There's nothing here. Let's see here. Let's see if we can play this one.
How bad?
Like, all the bad.
Yeah, this is bad. I don't suppose you can still fly?
Yeah, that's not happening.
So as you can tell, all of these people in the streets, you know, it's like they got a virus in them. There's going to be all the people in the streets, and they're all deranged. And then, you know, they're just all attacking the enemy, right?
How is she? Life signs are good.
Her signal's strong, Captain.
Let's fast forward. So they're getting chased by the swarm, right? And Neo and Trinity need to escape. They finally, you know, made contact at the end of the movie, and now the system is really turning up the heat. They're really turning up the heat on things. So let's take another look at this. This is when the swarm gets activated, right? And people are going to say, oh, you're being too conspiratorial. Between COVID and the technology that was released, the amount of mind control and physical control that these people have over people is bonkers. So let's just continue watching and see what starts to happen as they turn up the heat. People get activated, right?
Zeke, what is that?
So think about this going into March, heading into April and May. Think about the seasons and the type of technology that was invested and injected into people, you know? And then think about this scene right here. Think about this scene.
What is that? What's wrong? What are you...
He's turning bots into bombs.
Lexi?
Shepard's in trouble.
Check me in.
Can get you in? I don't know if I can get you out.
Okay, so what are we witnessing? We're witnessing people doing crazy things, right? Total no regard for what's right and wrong. They believe they're on the side of good, right? They're jumping to attack Neo. He's trying to escape, right? And so when we start to see events pick up in this world, think of this scene. And then just while we're on that caveat and that trip, let's take a look at the recent video that we're down to the final moments, apparently, is what Trump said. Let's get into this. If anyone would like
that's going
to
be the next thing
leave a comment, or let's see if there are any comments out there. Anything in the chat? Nothing in the chat for Twitter. Okay. Let's see.
But that's going to be the next thing you'll be talking about is Iran. What's going to happen with Iran? And there'll be some interesting days ahead. That's all I can tell you. You know, we're down to final strokes with Iran. That's going to be an interesting time. And we'll see what happens. But we're down to the final moments. We're at final moments.
While other networks lie to you about what's happening now, InfoWars tells you the truth about what's happening next.
So what do you guys think? We're into the final moments with Iran as the season of sacrifice is kicking off. So what do you think? Trump's just said it. We're in the final moments. Let's keep watching.
InfoWars.com/show.
It did start. I mean, think of what happened. Inflation. You have the war with Ukraine and Russia. That wouldn't have happened. October 7th would have never happened. Israel, they had no money. Iran had no money. Iran was stone cold broke, and now they have a lot of money. But that's going to be the next thing you'll be talking about is Iran. What's going to happen with Iran? And there'll be some interesting days ahead. That's all I can tell you. You know, we're down to final strokes with Iran. That's going to be an interesting time. And we'll see what happens. But we're down to the final moments. We're at final moments. You can't let them have a nuclear weapon. I think that I would have had a deal within 1 month after the rigged election of 2020. They were all set to make a deal. And then when I lost, they saw this person who's a stupid person, very stupid person. And they said, let's not make a deal. And they were right. He took the sanctions off. They became rich under Biden. They went from having no money to having $300 billion. All in a short period. It's oil. Oil builds up fast. It's a nice living if you have a nice oil well. And they do. They have a lot of nice oil wells, right? So anyway, it's going to be a big thing. It's an interesting time in the history of the world. But we have a situation with Iran that something's going to happen very soon. Very, very soon. You'll be talking about that pretty soon, I guess. And hopefully we can have a peace deal. You know, I'm not speaking out of strength or weakness. I'm just saying I'd rather see a peace deal than the other. But the other will solve the problem.
That's right. So many countries are psychotic and megalomaniacal and Machiavelli, so they can dominate somebody they will. That's what America's been doing under the globalists. That's why Trump said, you know, Russia really wants to end this war, even though they have all the cards. They actually don't want to take over all these places because long term, it's going to hurt them economically.
I want to get into something I was thinking about. So, okay. So anyone who's watching this, so I'm constantly wondering what is going on with Alex Jones. What is going on with Joe Rogan? What is going on with all of these people? Why do they believe that Donald Trump is saving the world? And why are they saying that, or why are they promoting that? And so a theory that I've been meditating on is that over the next few years, these false flags are going to be reaching such unprecedented scale and global reach that it's going to be apocalyptic. And what I think that Rogan and Musk and all of these people are doing, why I think, because it's like, why is Alex Jones so hardcore on Trump when he should be talking about natural law? He should be getting people out of this political paradigm. He should be talking about the false flag season. He should be talking about the season of sacrifice. But, you know, in a light way, that's what I don't, you know, I'm not saying that he shouldn't have free will or tell him what to do. But at the same time, Alex Jones should be one of the people steering people away from the snare of government. He should be steering people away from the snare of worshiping a person, worshiping Trump. So what I can think that they are doing, what I am speculating on, is that what's going to be happening is going to be so intense that they're ramping up hopium. And they know what's coming. And they know that the season of sacrifice is upon us. And so they're ramping up support and patriotism to give people hope for the future when it all comes crashing down. I don't think that they always actually believe that, oh, America's back, you know, we're going into a new golden age. I think that they're going to be covering up all of the bad stuff, all of the destruction, all the war, whatever happens, but it's going to be big, and they're simulating, or it's going to be seemingly like the end of the world, right? It's going to be the sacrifice, right? It's going to be the ultimate sacrifices, you know, the destruction of everything as we know it. So I think they're getting everyone high on hopium, so that way when things get really difficult, they're not actually, you know, it's going to minimize the effects on America. That's what I really, you know, I've been thinking about that a lot, because I've been giving Rogan and Jones and all of the mainstream alternative media people a bad time, which I still think they kind of need a bad time. However, I think the psyop is that they're getting everyone patriotic and giving people hope, because hope is going to start getting yanked from the world as things get more and more and more and more difficult. And the sad part and the mistake that they're making is believing that this old school patriotism and this old school dogma of authority, and that, you know, change happens from the top down, you know, is the worst thing that they could be doing, because it's not how change works. Change works from the bottom up when people are actively doing something and they're not putting their faith into a government. So that's what I think Jones and all these people are doing, and is they're ramping up for the seasons from which the sacrifice is going to be so intense, and things are going to start going down in America. Things really are going to start going down in America. There was a part in Donald Trump's book where he talks about nukes going off in Manhattan and how he thinks that this is a total possibility. What do we think about the people coming in through the border with, you know, suitcase nukes, tactical nukes? You know, things are going to be getting so wild here shortly. I'm not saying that anything, you know, I'm not saying that anything like a nuke or something like that is going to happen this year, but the season of sacrifice and the false flag season is the ultimate time when everything picks up, and humanity should be vigilant. So let's hear Jones' analysis from this Trump piece that we just watched.
So they've pulled back from caveman brain like all the rest of us should. But Iran and Israel aren't. And you keep hearing Trump say they can't have a nuclear weapon. It means they've got delivery systems now. They've got ballistic missiles that have already a whole bunch of times, not just out of Iran, but other Shiite strongholds, they've been able to hit Israel and get through their defenses. So Iran can now hit Israel with nuclear weapons. They just don't want to tell you they've got nukes, just like Israel won't tell you they've had nukes since the early 60s, probably earlier. And that's where we are. So let me give you a translation. Let's play the first of that clip one more time. He said it's about to happen. We're in the final steps. And Trump doesn't BS. And he says, you know, we're in a very interesting time in the world. I'm not saying it from a position of weakness. We've got all these high-tech weapons. Trump's simply saying, I really don't think this is a good idea. But then he says we can't let them have a nuclear weapon, which means a nuclear weapon that's deliverable, which they have. And that's why you have to understand that if Israel hits them, which they are, they're not going to very soon, if the deal isn't made, they're going to hit them not just with bunker-busting missiles, because the Iranians have all these giant underground bases. They're going to hit them with nuclear weapons. And I can guarantee you that the Israelis know what we've got. And I'm going to tell you something nobody else really talks about, and that I didn't get from somebody else recently. I know it from deep research and some of the leaks that happened over the years, interviewing the former secret head of the Star Wars program, Dr. Bob Bowman, many times. Since the late 70s, the United States has space platforms. They've been upgraded quite a bit. Back then there was platforms, but drone spacecraft with DU.
So what have I been talking about in the second episode of this show? We talked about the technology, right? The OG technology and the technology that is going beyond what most of the public even understands. And so what we just covered earlier with the implementation of all of the 5G, all of the the millimeter wave technology from the Starlink satellites, is that there is such a sophisticated grid of surveillance going on. And I think that between China and America having the sophisticated AI satellite systems, there's nothing really that goes on that isn't already predicted. So you have NRO with the quantum future predicting satellites, where the satellites will automatically turn to events that could potentially be happen because the AI is using quantum sensors these days. So this season, and what they're talking about in Alex Jones, it just came on 2 hours ago. This just came out where Trump said it. I wanna watch it again.
And that's going to be the next thing you'll be talking about is Iran. What's going to happen with Iran? And there'll be some interesting days ahead. That's all I can tell you.
Interesting days ahead, coming into the bright season of sacrifice. So don't get it confused, and don't think that there aren't plans to things, and don't think that these events are just accidents. So what they're going to be trying to do is maintain a grip on the chaos as it unfolds. So if there is an America which survives these coming events and coming the next big sacrifice, because like I'm saying, it's going to get bigger. The sacrifice is going to be global. And, it might take a year or two to pick up to that, but we already know that it's happened, it's been coming, and they're waiting on the big one. And now, I don't think that right off the bat, it's all just going to be apocalyptic. However, it's going to be picking up over the next few years with all of these people angry at Trump. We witnessed just yesterday, I think it was yesterday or the day before, that congressional hearing with Trump, and all these politicians were booing him, and they had to get kicked out and escorted. It's like they're misbehaving themselves because their little fight or flight modes are kicked in and engaged. And we talked in the first episode about how Trump, he serves as this catalyst for change, who is removing a different system. And he serves as this, he's kind of like the scapegoat, right? They're all going to blame Trump when the missiles start flying. So, and then if America lives through it and he rescues the world, it'll be the perfect hero story, which will even further embolden the patriotism and the gung-ho worship of authority and the gung-ho worship of the military. And humanity will just continue this cycle of accepting top-down control and change, and the televised revolution. So let's keep going for a second.
Take over all these places, because long term it's going to hurt them economically. So they've pulled back from caveman brain like all the rest of us should. But Iran and Israel aren't. And you keep hearing Trump say they can't have a nuclear weapon. It means they've got delivery systems now. They've got ballistic missiles that have already a whole bunch of times, not just out of Iran, but other Shiite strongholds, they've been able to hit Israel and get to their defenses. So Iran can now hit Israel with nuclear weapons. They just don't want to tell you they've got nukes, just like Israel won't tell you they've had nukes since the early 60s, probably earlier. And that's where we are. So let me give you a translation. Let's play the first of that clip one more time. He said it's about to happen. We're in the final steps. And Trump doesn't BS. And he says, we're in a very interesting time in the world. I'm not saying it from a position of weakness. We've got all these high-tech weapons. Trump's simply saying, I really don't think this is a good idea. But then he says we can't let them have a nuclear weapon, which means a nuclear weapon that's deliverable, which they have. And that's why you have to understand that if Israel hits them, which they are, they're not going to, very soon, if the deal isn't made, they're going to hit them not just with bunker-busting missiles, because the Iranians have all these giant underground bases. They're going to hit them with nuclear weapons. And I can guarantee you that the Israelis know what we've got. And I'm going to tell you something nobody else really talks about, and that I didn't get from somebody else recently. I know it from deep research and some of the leaks that happened over the years, interviewing the former secret head of the Star Wars program, Dr. Bob Bowman, many times. Since the late 70s, the United States has space platforms. They've been upgraded quite a bit. Back then there was platforms, but drone spacecraft with DU meteor guns. And when you hear the term meteor gun, it's like video game firing a meteor out or something. It uses the gravity well with a rocket on the end of a solid DU Sabo, where they can then target from space, hit the booster. It's got controls on it, and then it accelerates to more than 30,000 miles an hour. Nobody can shoot that down. That's Mach over the top. And then with its kinetic energy of, say, a 100-pound solid rod, you can kill somebody a mile under a mountain with it. The kinetic energy. And it has this more power, penetratively wise, than a decent.
So it's in the ether. Just as I made this podcast and we started talking about it, it's already the wars and rumors of wars, right? And then we have disclosure, which I put on the thumbnail, right? They're going to do the disclosure. They're going to have events take place that are mind-boggling. They're going to confuse you. You're not going to understand that it's actually all going according to plan. And they have redundancies after redundancies after redundancies to maintain, what do they call it? The continuation of government, right? The COG. And Trump is trying to grab a hold of the continuation of government plan that will eventually be utilized. Because I'm not saying it's all coming today, but it's going to be leading in and bleeding in. What did we talk about in the first episode? Was that these events, massive improvements and technologies and mind-boggling things that we could only imagine, they're going to be being released as the disorder and as all the chaos ensues. So you have the chaos, entropy, and the orderly forces picking up at the same time. And so, walking the fine line of reality is going to be even more confusing. And so all of this is it's picking up. They're all saying, we're down to the final moments. He's talking about, space warfare. Everyone is sort of coming to the terms of the theories and all of these things that have been going on under our noses. But, is anybody questioning the foundational truths and the foundational principles? I would argue that no. there are not many people saying, learn into the psychology of the rulers and the influence, the spiritual influence and the spiritual impact that these, ancient stories and the ancient philosophies and psychologies of mankind are. So, you have Ian Carroll. Everyone's like, oh, Ian Carroll's a shill. Oh, he's not a shill. Oh, he's not controlled opposition. The funny thing about controlled opposition is that those who are controlled opposition, they don't actually know that they're controlled opposition. They believe that they are, just a normal person and they're on the right team. However, they are misguided and they're dragging their baggage into the so-called solutions, which will never work. And so as things pick up during this season and as they start ramping it up, so there are going to be events. It's like clockwork all around the world. You can just assume that it will include fire and bombs. That's a great one. From 322 to 5-1, the season of sacrifice. And all of the people, guess they're going to start utilizing any events. So, say something happens with Iran, then the people who are mad at Trump or want to dismantle Trump's order or whatever he's doing, they're going to do their events during the same time, that the Hamas stuff is getting kicked off, and then they'll be able to blame Iran for the, terrible things that are going on. And it's creating this boogeyman and an us versus them cycle. But, humanity has to, if we want a golden age, if we want to start changing things, humanity has to realize that I can't just do what I'm told. It doesn't make me a good person to do what I'm told. It doesn't make me a good person to just follow orders. Good people question authority, and good people question, our entire country is found on those questioning and battling authority. So we don't just believe things. It's not good to just believe things. Obviously. So let's see if there's anything on here that we can talk about that has to do with this new season that we're coming into. The false flag season.
Ladies and gentlemen, in mere minutes, President Trump has announced a major press conference. He hasn't said about what. I predict he's going to make major threats to Russia to come to the peace table. Well, he has a scheduled press conference for right now. He hasn't said what it's to be about. It's not our prediction to say he's going to bring this up to Putin. Putin said to be ready to agree to ceasefire with conditions that are unacceptable to Ukraine. And so Putin's point is, well, I'm not going to wait here while this all goes on. But if Putin thought Trump wasn't going to respond to this offensive, he was gravely mistaken. All right, we'll be right back, ladies and gentlemen. Our president is the real deal. And he doesn't want to blow up all his golf courses with nuclear bombs or his grandchildren. That means yours too. We'll be right back. It is 11:06 Central Standard Time. And we are entering day 46 of the return of President Trump and the return of the American Republic and the return to common sense and sanity, at least in some sectors of planet Earth. It is Friday, March 7th, 2025. The White House announced this morning that Trump is going to make a special announcement and have a press conference at 12 noon. They pushed it back 15 banking sanctions. The offer was conveyed. Statistic.
You heard the same stat where Foreign workers were taking up all the jobs, or almost all the jobs. In some cases, literally all of the jobs.
All of them.
And now it's...
yeah, the last year of Biden, all new jobs were illegals.
Native-born jobs here.
So just to get back into it, the tension that's going on, you can cut the tension with a knife, right? You have Americans, people who are here legally and illegally, which a lot of times is essentially ethnicity and race gets involved. So the racial tensions are on the rise. And those who have the left leanings, you know, they're all going to be rebelling and they're all going to be fighting. What is primed to happen in America and throughout the world should be enough to wake everyone up. And what these people are doing is they're ramping up the hopium, because I think they're scared and they're trying to make sure that humanity doesn't lose faith in the establishment and faith in the system of control that they see as order. They see the institutions and the government as institutions for good and order to, keep everything civilized, right? Really, they have no idea the connection with the natural world. All of their solutions are unnatural. All of their solutions are trying to treat the symptoms of a sick and unnatural world. So that's why they're going to keep throwing. So Donald Trump, how much does he know about natural law? Is he a scientist? Is he someone who truly has studied psychology and morality? Is he someone who has, dedicated his life to nonviolent behavior and moral activities? I'm not saying he's a brutal thug, but he knows the game and how to play it, and he's playing in a system that takes you away from your natural morality and your conscience. And so, people like Trump, they are powerful, however, they are manipulable, and they are malleable, and they make mistakes, and they're human. So he has faith in it because he wants to do his best for his country. He thinks he's the only one. I think they're terribly afraid of the inevitable fact that there is a group of other individuals who know immensely more than them. And they're hoping that their alignment with good nature will serve them through this fight that we're about to have. And, America, sadly, and most of the world, don't understand natural law. They don't understand morality. So they're dragging bad solutions into the modern day when we should be getting rid of things that cause, like we should be getting rid of unnatural, immoral institutions.
Born in our country, 284,000, while foreign-born workers went down by 87,000.
Under the ESG, black.
China, same thing with a lot of other countries. And
get rid of protective tariffs that helped us and made us the most, even though it was going to collapse everything. Absolutely insane. And the top globalists had convinced themselves that they would somehow manage all that. Look, I've got so much news, but it's that basic fact that's so important. Now, two big announcements that are very beyond exciting, amazing. I wanted to come out with a super high quality, high dose, concentrated, not just thing that boosts your immune system, but something that boosts health and vitality in general. And of course, anything that boosts your immune system is doing that anyways. So, been about 5-6 months in development.
And I guess they had a series of people that didn't know what the hell they were doing, and we gradually lost the chip business, and now it's almost exclusively in Taiwan. They stole it from us. They took it from us, and I don't blame them. I give them credit. I blame the people that were sitting in this seat because they allowed it to happen. We could have protected that so easily, but so we had the chip business, and now it's all in Taiwan, almost exclusive, a little bit in South Korea, but mostly in Taiwan. And it's very important. Everything you do, everything you touch is now about chips.
Okay, let's
the brake
stop
of
here.
a car.
Again, the press conference just ended, but we paused it. And I was right. It wasn't hard to predict. He did address Russia at the end. So, guys, cue that up because I want to just go to that part because I want to then get into the Russian stuff, finish up on that, then move into all the other domestic news, and there is a lot of it. But bottom line, the corporate press is trying to tell you that Trump is failing here and there. No, he's not. He knew there'd be a fight with a lot of this, but the success is much.
So this is another way that, Jones fell into the habit, I think he fell into the habit of believing too much that patriotism will save us, and believing too much that, all everyone needs to do is be hopeful and support the president. And all you have to do is support the president. And how bad is this going to get to where, how much of this support for Trump is going to turn into a religious fanaticism where you can't question anything and you will be the terrorist if you question it. Trump said recently about some AI bill about replicating people and impersonating people, which there should be lines to and lines in the sand for what you can do if you're doing impersonations for creative purposes or whatever. But Trump believes in enforcing the law. He believes in these institutions of man, which he thinks that the ostensible purpose is to raise awareness and evolve humankind, when in reality these systems are meant to promote the survival of, they're meant to preserve life. We're so detached from death, and we're so detached from, what death means, that we try to keep people alive and we try to give all these medications to prevent death, when in reality, nobody is looking into the natural way to make people live longer through natural means. Don't live an immoral lifestyle, creating unnecessary suffering and stress on yourself. You want to talk about something that will cause disease. That's why all of these people who follow orders, all of these people who are just backing the government through and through, they have such deep mental and physical and emotional issues that, how do you even go about getting through to some of these people? How do you go about getting through to these people who now have just been emboldened by a president who just, he loves law and order? And when he says that, does he really believe that law and order comes from people voting on it? And then, as long as the majority, thinks that, smoking marijuana is bad and you should be in prison for it, as long as the majority believes that, well, that's illegal. It's a crime.
Quicker than he thought, and even much quicker than we thought. And the attempts to get everybody to turn and run on the economy is failing. But I'm saying what nobody else is saying. And I predicted it months ago, even before Doge got in. And I've been predicting it since every day. And now on Monday, the former head of the Social Security Administration, big Democrat, said it will crash in 30 to 90 days, and you will not get your check. And they got Democrat operatives like that idiot Congresswoman Crockett saying, I'm telling you, constituents, you're not getting your check coming up in the next few months. They got something big planned, a cyber attack. I don't know exactly how they're going to pull it, but, they tell you what they telegraph it. And we're just sitting here, and I know Trump's people are really smart, and they listen. They've got us on in their war room, literally, the feed. And
so what does that say about the administration? If that's true, if what Alex Jones is saying, that the president and in the war room, they're watching Alex Jones, right? It would not, do you really think Alex Jones is not shaking hands with these people? I think there is a massive hopium psyop being played on everyone. Because they know what's coming, and they're trying to make everyone have some type of hope. They want everyone hopeful. That's why they're getting so much shit, is because, and I've been thinking about it for weeks. How is it possible that there is such fanatic support of Donald Trump and that administration in the government that it's like, Alex Jones, does he really support Trump this much? Where he's pushing millions and hundreds of millions of people into the mainstream government political mind control? If the people running the world, who are pulling the strings and dropping bombs and have the nuclear passcodes, if all they got is Alex Jones and some bombs, that's fucking crazy. It's fucking crazy, guys. They're telling you, they're all letting you know, oh, it's coming, and Trump, he always whitewashes it all. He says, well, we're going to have some hard times, it'll be rough for a minute. It'll be rough for a minute, guys, But, he downplays all of the bad shit coming down the pike. And they're getting people hopeful. And they're getting people hopeful on to bullshit, which is the dupe that they fell for. Because they're not talking about government meaning, the word government meaning mind control. Donald Trump isn't saying we need to turn everyone into a police officer. Which, imagine if every United States American citizen, legal of age, could learn about morality and pass a test. And rather than just being a small group of social cult members who abuse your town and your city, and they don't even live in your city, and they don't even live in your town, or they do, but they're part of such an old money family culty high school bullshit that, they love it all and they're in on it. If Donald Trump were to say, oh, all the sheriffs should, deputize the willing and moral upstanding citizens who, can be part of the community, how much of an impact that would have, because it would level the playing field, and police would be essentially policing each other if you decentralized it. But they don't want to do that. They don't want to decentralize it. They don't want to educate people on morality. They don't want to educate it because they're stuck in the old way, which is what we talked about in episode 1. They're bringing in bad baggage into the new way of shit. And come the fuck on, Alex Jones. It's sad that they actually think getting people to support Donald Trump is like the best mode. I mean, I don't know what has to be going on behind the scenes to actually push the Trump stuff. I'm a fucking American patriot, and I don't think that Trump is all evil, and I don't think he's a bad-intentioned person. I think his intentions are well. I don't think that he's, this super evil fucking mega villain, and he's just playing, he's actually serving as a double agent, secret agent man. I don't think that that's what Trump is. I think he's doing the best as the cliche American dad. So keep that in your mind. And what's going to be happening in the next 4 years and the next 4 months even is going to just start shaking things to hell. And they're going to cling to the establishment harder, which is the wrong move. It's the wrong move to just keep clinging to the government fuckery and the compartmentalized fuckery. They all think they're in on the club, and they're just playing a piece. They're just a pawn. They're just a little tiny pawn.
Musk has come out and said, oh, don't worry, I don't need to steal your Social Security check, ha, ha, ha. But the only way they could really derail stuff is if people don't get their Social Security check because there's a crash caused by Elon, which it won't be, of course. It's preposterous. They're actually updating the systems. Many of them weren't even there. It's a total scam.
So it's going to cause even more division when all of these start taking place. Because Alex Jones hears the grapevine stuff, right? He's not essentially one of the people who are bringing out the thought deception, bringing out the manipulation, bringing out the, how many times has Alex Jones said things and pushed things that were clearly part of a psyop? I mean, it has happened. Theoretically, Alex Jones said that he knew that Trump was going to lose, and that Roger Stone knew that Trump was going to lose in 2020. So if they have that type of advanced knowledge, why are they so hesitant to decentralize the cult of authority? And wouldn't it make America so much stronger if you embolden the citizens to take action, and you embolden the police officers to not do corrupt bullshit, and they could focus on real criminals, and they could just worry about their own fucking lives instead of trying to police other Americans?
Hundreds of billions a year just going overseas, trillions in the aggregate. They're planning something big. And they've said, we're going to use a virus to bring in world government, and we're going to use a big cyber outage to do it. Over and over again. Klaus Schwab, all of them. And the CIA war games, all of it. So I don't see them giving up. I said they'll try to crash the government payment system. Even before they started saying Musk was going to do it, before he got in, because I knew what he'd go into. He'd go check the payment system. That's what you do. You're doing an audit. And as they promised to do, and what do? They do what they say. Isn't that refreshing? And so I know the bad guys, and I'm just calling the listeners, everybody else, that we'll post some video that idiot left is saying something stupid and it gets 50 million views on X. And then I do a report on something like this last week and this week, and it'll get 500,000 views. And I'm just like, I want the views because that means people are getting it. And when we get 50, 100 million views on something, it becomes policy. I mean, literally, you have a big effect when you share the stuff. Huge. And that's...
So we heard it from Alex Jones right there. Everyone watching the show, everyone tuning in, everyone who is witnessing whatever this show is, I've always encouraged people to take action. There should be thousands and hundreds and thousands of people doing things their own way. And I don't mean just TikTok videos or Instagram videos, but actually collect the information of morality, collect knowledge of the occult, of psychology, the ancient forms of manipulation. Go check out this other information. You can go to the One Great Work Network. Go to this website and take a look at all of this content. All of this content is just amazing, and these people really know their stuff when it comes to the occult, when it comes to freedom. Go check out my presentation that I, took many months out of my personal life, which I had to sacrifice, and I'm here to do because I want my children to be in a free world. I want my children to be educated, and guess what? All that I pray is that if my son, my sons and my children are able to live in a world where this information and this podcast is still available, and that maybe other children and other people of the world will be able to say, wow, I didn't know this, or it's people getting out there and doing it and not being afraid of the consequences. Because do I like do I honestly essentially like making content like this? I think I don't like it really for the most part. I don't like being out here doing it, maybe because it's uncomfortable and I just want to be a cozy guy, right? But I'm here doing this work because people should be aware of this. And what do we see? What do we see in this day and age? We see just a furthering of the destruction of consciousness. And we see a furthering of the destruction of freedom. So the Department of Justice removes database tracking police misconduct. So why would Trump remove that? So we want an accountable society and we want freedom. However, we keep kicking our own ass is essentially what we're doing when the things like this happen, because imperfect people behave imperfectly and bad people behave badly. So, all of this supporting, I understand that police and military, they're all just people and they've had their minds, for lack of a better word, raped. And they think that freedom comes from murder and coercion and extortion and theft. And they think that in order to live in a free world, you need to be just subjected to immoral abuse and fines and all of this bullshit, that everyone has a poor worldview. And if you think that people need policing, then you're just wrong and you don't know morality. And, I've given the analogy of the human organism and the human body as being a unit, and the human body as being, a system of organs that, is just many pieces on one same mission, and that is like health, right? So when you get a cut on your skin, all of your body starts to focus on that area, and all your red blood cells go to that area to start clotting it, right? And all of these cells go to the area to start stopping the hemorrhage. And so that is exactly what human beings should be like. Instead, what human beings are doing is, if humans were the red blood cells and the body was cut, all the red blood cells go, oh, I'm going to go hang out in the spleen. I'm going to go hang out over here. I'm going to go do this. I'm going to go do that. They're not unified. Entropy is setting in, and humanity is not united because they're not conscious enough to realize where they're fucking up. And so we continue to have a poisoned worldview, and all of the good things in life happen from the top down. And, there's no need to lift a finger, because essentially it's all being done for you.
Size hydrogen bomb, because it just has such weight. It goes deep, 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 and then just the.
So let's see here.
All I want to do is stabilize things and not have a nuclear war, and then have prosperity. Because, I understand how dangerous the world is, and I know you do as well, and so does Trump. But there's still a lot of people that don't get it. Now, I'm going to go to Trump in the press conference from the point on Russia. Then we'll finish at the press conference, and I'll get into all the other news. And coups like we saw in Romania. So you force a quiet dictatorship to become an open, loud one. Orban says financing Ukraine's war effort would ruin Europe. They're already bankrupted. He's absolutely right. He goes over all the numbers. European Union has failed to reach in the winter. And I remember as a child, jets would fly over in Dallas. And you would see when it was cold, they'd leave a little trail. And within a minute or so, it would fade away. Mantis religosa, the name of the mantis in Latin. So they play this game. Oh, well, no, there's no chemtrail funding. Well, it's not called chemtrailing. It's geoengineering, or basically terraforming it the way they want. So when we talk about UFOs, it's a lot bigger than that. It's the whole secretive system. And I know Trump's dialed in from his family with some of the top Tesla scientists. His uncle, one of the people that actually was able to see all that, the FBI grabbed, because he was at the university where that stuff was sent and was over it. So Trump has said he wants to innovate, and then a lot of incredible new science stuff's you're about to hear, he said, as soon as we stabilize the economy and stop World War III, you're going to see a lot of big science breakthroughs. He goes, we're going to conquer the mysteries of science. What's that mean? So we are on the verge, if Trump's agenda and Musk's agenda and my agenda and your agenda is successful, we're on the verge of earth-changing events, the likes of which we've never seen. Because
so I think I've pretty much made my case. This is what we will be seeing. The PSYOP and the hopium will continue to increase, and there will be a delusion of grandeur on everyone's face as we go into the future, and they will believe that, you know, we put our faith in professionals and experts and Elon Musk and Donald Trump, and, you know, put our faith in all of the people who trained the AI that will be essentially looking over everything. And we've already talked about the flaws that come with that. So I've had enough about looking at all that. I would like to thank everyone for watching, and I will be taking a couple weeks off because I have some business to take care of, and I have to get work done and do work that takes me away from this. And so if you would be so kind as to donate to myself personally as a gift, it will help me come back a lot sooner, and it will help me make work, you know, a lot more proficient, so I don't have to take breaks and go try to leave to do other things. You know, I could maybe hopefully one day sustain myself by doing this and sustain my family and take care of my family by doing this. Supports would seriously mean a lot. You can find my links in all of my X profile, in my YouTube profile, on my Instagram. You know, it's right at the top of X. It should be on all of the streaming platforms that I use, Rumble, Kick, Twitch. Please consider donating and sending some funds, because that would be awesome. It would help me out. It would help my family out, and I can continue to give badass presentations and make everything, you know, even more cool. It'll help me, you know, boost my technology. Go to the Amazon wish list. That is like, you know, I have a couple things on there. I could use a new computer. So anything helps, and yep, that I will finish it there. So thank you for watching, everyone, and thank you for taking a look at the Season of Sacrifice and False Flag season. I hope you got some good information. So thanks again, everybody.